So in the last of my videos taking a look at the recent B&M exclusive Doctor Who figure sets from Character Options wave that has just come out this week, I'll be taking a look and reviewing the Earthshock set. Now I have to admit my initial reaction when this set was announced was actually disappointment. For me, Earthshock is one of the best all-time Doctor Who stories, and my hopes were high that we would get something unique and interesting in this set, which we did get, but it's not quite what I was hoping for. So I would have personally preferred to have had maybe a 5th Doctor, perhaps that Cyber Leader that we got in the 5 Doctor set, and a companion. Possibly Adric, maybe Tegan. This would have been absolutely brilliant and would have made this an instant must-buy for me. It would have been a really highly anticipated set. As it is, though, we've essentially got another 5th Doctor, which it's a variant, it's one that we've had before, and 2 identical androids. Now, perhaps if they'd done one of these androids and, again, a companion, or even the Cyber Leader, then I probably would have been more excited for it. As it is, we're getting a variant of the 5th Doctor and 2 identical androids. Now, in the show there are 2, so I understand why they've done it, but that said, I don't feel like I need 2. But if they'd wanted to ensure sales, perhaps what they could have done is actually have a running change to these sets and have one with one companion, say Tegan, and another set which is exactly the same except with Adric in. That way they would have had 2 bites of the cherry, and of course most of the fans, including myself, would have been right there to pick up both sets. But despite my initial disappointment, I have to say overall there's actually some little surprises in here which make it a little bit more exciting than I had initially realised. So, first off, the packaging. I think by now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know exactly what I'm going to say. The window display is fantastic. It's all about that window display, really, in terms of displaying this on the shelf, which makes it look interesting and attractive. The rest of the branding, I'm not overly keen on. I'm not a big fan of the current Doctor Who logo, and it certainly dates it in the collection. And, of course, having the blue and grey is a little bit dull as a colour scheme, and I do wish they'd shake this up and add a bit more colour into this branding overall. The reverse of the packaging is fairly uninspired as well, again, pretty dull looking. We just have the 3 figures on display. There's no text here, there's no history or information about the serial itself, which we've seen in the other sets, so overall, yeah, not too exciting. On the other hand, I do think the interior inlay is really very cool. I'm a big fan of these. I love how they're reproducing them. It's nice to see the TARDIS there. And of course, this is replicating what we see in the cave sequence at the beginning of the serial. So this is nicely rendered and creates a nice mini diorama. So first up we have the 5th Doctor. Now of course in terms of the mould, this is exactly the same 5th Doctor we've seen released countless times over the years. Now I've always thought that the head sculpt on this figure was pretty solid, and it kind of serves any of the 3 seasons for which Peter Davison was in the role. I think the likeness is pretty strong. I think in some of the earlier episodes he had slightly longer hair than in later ones, but overall I think this is a pretty decent likeness. It's maybe not pitch perfect, but it does a pretty good job. Now, the one pleasant surprise of this set is that actually the 5th Doctor is a variant. There is actually some added paint taps on this figure, some dirt on his shoulder, on his back, and of course on his pants and trainers as well, which is fantastic. So this does feel like it is a legitimate variant. I can't say it's one that I've ever thought about or one that I particularly wanted, but at least it isn't just a straight re-release. There is something a little bit different, subtle and a bit nuanced nevertheless, but at least it does warrant it as being slightly different to the ones we've already got in our collection. As for the articulation scheme, well, there's no real surprises here. He does of course have the swivel at the neck there. He's got this swivel at the shoulders, and again I feel like they've really missed a trick. I know I've complained in other videos, but I really wish they would update some of these classic Doctors to have that ball joint in the shoulders so they can arc their arms out, especially since these are re-releases. Other than that, he's got the bicep swivel, the single jointed elbow, the swivel at the wrist, and of course swivel at the waist. His leg do hinge at the hip, which is great, so the legs do kick out, although they are restricted by the coat a little bit. There's the upper thigh swivel, and of course the legs kick forwards and a little bit backwards, and then there's a single joint in the knee. Something to watch out for with these sets though is that some of these figures do feel very rubbery. The texture and the materials they use feel very soft. It's not always a bad thing, sometimes it allows for greater flexibility than we got with the standard releases, but that said, when it comes to the joints they can feel a little bit loose and there's a danger that they feel like they might tear off. Okay then, so moving on to the androids. Now, both of these androids are identical, so I'll just be taking a look at the one for now. Overall, its presentation is pretty solid. This does look to be very screen accurate, although it is a very simple, simplistic design. We do at least have the satisfaction of knowing that what we're getting is pretty much spot on to what we see on screen. Whilst the base mould for the body of course is recycled from the Vord released earlier this year, and of course that head sculpt there was used on the Raston robot, just time painted black, these androids are at least given something unique in their hand sculpts, where they have obviously the palm outstretched there with the laser in them, which is pretty cool. And in their left hand they have the pointing finger there, which is a little bit different and yeah, pretty decent. There's no real surprises in the articulation scheme. He's got a swivel at the neck there. He's got the fantastic ball jointed shoulders, so that's definitely something in his favour. He's got the upper bicep swivel, and he's got the single jointed elbow as well. And of course, he has the swivel at the wrist, as well as a swivel at the waist. So all in all, pretty decent articulation. He's got hinged hips, so the legs kick out all the way there. He's got the upper thigh swivel, and of course the legs kick forwards and a little bit backwards, and he's got the single jointed knees. But I'm pleased to say that this set comes with a couple of extra props as well, including an extra pair of hands for each android and the bomb, which I think is very, very cool, very distinctively 80s prop, so top marks for this. And I have to say, despite being fairly dull in appearance and of course being identical, when you do put these two guys together, they do look pretty cool as a pair. So in conclusion then, it's not quite the disaster I'd initially anticipated. Still, I do think it is a disappointment. Overall for me, I think this is a 2-star set. I think every figure in this set is 2 stars. I think if they'd swapped out one of the androids for something else a little bit more interesting, perhaps they could even swap out the 5th Doctor if that was the case, to swap out with a companion, that would have been fantastic. As it is, it's not the most exciting release. The figures in it are a little bit dull in terms of their design and look, and although that is faithful to what we see on screen, I think they should have introduced something in toy form that would have made this a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun, because it is kind of dull, even though there are some nice surprises in here. I do really like the props. I like that the 5th Doctor has a little bit of variation when it comes to having a little bit of dirt on his costume. It's small, but it's something, and I do think the androids are well rendered, if a little repetitive and a little bit dull. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.